I am Vicki Campbell. I am a grandmother of 10 grandchildren. I'm a mom and stepmom to 5. I am a daughter of Dave Stoneman and Louise Berthollet, and I'm granddaughter of Roderick and Harriet Asham, and I am the wife of late Sandy Campbell. And I am the chairperson of Manitoba House Local. This is my 3rd year. I started right after Sandy passed. They asked me to, well, he passed in April and I started in June with Local. And yeah, that was, the rest is history. My parents moved all over the place. My dad had all different kinds of jobs, and it was like the more places you move, the more people you meet, right? So it's like it's a big world. You have people to meet. Yeah, they moved around a lot. So we moved from Pilot Mound back home to Reedy Creek. And my mom is originally from Reedy Creek. My dad's from Priestville, Saskatchewan. We went back to Reedy Creek, and when they were getting a house ready for us to live in, and we had to live with different relatives while we were waiting. And there's lots of us. Mm-hmm. So we stayed with Irvin and Louise Anderson for a while, and I believe they had 8 kids, and I think they were all home. Well, maybe one of them wasn't home. I think maybe she was married already. And then we had like anywhere from 4 for sure, and most times 6 kids in our family. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And of course we had chores to do, like hauling wood and hauling water. We would just have this big long line of kids and passing the wood and then passing the pails of water. It was faster, it was less work, but it's a lot of fun. A lot of games outside at night, like, because you're always outside. You're either working or playing outside. There's none of this sitting around inside the house and watching TV or playing games. At that time there was no games. But you just couldn't sit around in the house. Like, there's things to do. And if you're not doing something, you get outside and you find something to do. I was the kid who always wanted to hang around with the older kids and do what they were doing because they were fun. And the older kids had gone down to the lake and they had made themselves a skating rink. So, of course, I wanted to go. Nobody wanted to take me because I was one of the younger kids. But finally, my aunt convinced them that they should take me. And so they loaded me up on the horse and we went by horseback back and forth to the lake. So I got to go skating and I was frozen in no time. But I didn't want to say anything because it was a hassle for them to take me, right? So anyway, by the time I got back to the house, Auntie Louise realized how frozen my feet were. So she had a cook stove in the house. And then she sat me right in front of the oven of the cook stove and put my feet up there. And oh my God, that was painful. I was like, why didn't you come home earlier? But you don't want to, right? Because you're having fun. But yeah, no, they helped out our family a lot. Yeah, we were always back and forth. Even when we finally did get our own house, then we were always back and forth. Yeah. My mom and Auntie Louise were actually raised by their grandmother. Yeah, I actually have pictures of the house they grew up in and their grandparents too. My favorite Métis meal would be probably the hamburger gravy and potatoes. That was always like everyone's favorite meal. And I don't know if it was because of what she put in it or because it went a long ways to feed a lot of people, because there was a lot of people to feed. So everybody loved it. But, and then there's like the duck soup would be another favorite. Yeah, duck soup and bannock. Yeah, that'd be good. We always had extra. We always had like extra people in my grandma's house for sure. There was people staying with them, either foster kids that she was looking after or just other youth who were having trouble at home, but they came safe place there. And it was kind of an agreement where the parents knew that they'd be taken care of, so they're okay to stay there. Yeah. You know, the way it used to be years ago. Mm-hmm. You need a break from your parents, you go to another family where you know you're okay to be there and your parents are okay with you being there. And then with our home, we always had extra kids in our house too. Like there's 4 of us in our family, but there was always 2 or 3 extra kids that were part of our family too. We grew up in Reedy Creek, but it was all over. It was all over. Everyone seemed to be in the same, like doing the same, because it was just the way it was. It was different, right? Because nobody actually said, I'm Métis, because it was kind of like hush hush kind of, right? Where now people are just proud to say it and not ashamed to say it. Where before we were never told anything, but we were just never told we're Métis and be proud of being Métis, because it was different. Like generations of trying to protect yourself, or trying to, maybe protect yourself is not the right word, but the fear, I guess, of what could happen. Like for the older people, like there's people in our community who refuse to admit that they're Indigenous at all because they were afraid their children would have to be going to the residential schools or the day schools. So yeah, back then it was just like, we were just a somebody, yeah. There's so many people now proud to be Métis. Like in our community, there's a lady who's just, for years and years, like she's one of my relatives, and years I've been trying to get her to apply for her citizenship card. And she always says, nope. My husband never ever wanted me to do that. Never wanted me to be a part of it. Nope. But last week she called and she said, okay, can I apply for the card? I'm ready for this. Like, and she's 86. I was so proud of her for applying, like phoning me and saying, okay, I'm ready. And it was a big step for her. And I said to her, because she felt kind of like she was going against someone's wishes, right? Yeah. And I said, I think that they would be okay with it because of all the help you're going to be getting. Like there's so many programs now that will help everybody. And especially her. She's a widow. She's been on her own for years. And everything that the Métis government has now is going to help her so much. One of my uncles, he's a veteran, and he was very well known. John Arthur Asham was his name. And he was very well known for his songs, for always singing songs. And it was all the old Scottish songs. But some of the phrases they would use, I can't even give you examples, but it would be like the old Scottish words, yeah. Like he came back from the war and he didn't get anything, like nothing at all. None of the veterans got anything. Like him and his brothers, there's so many of them that went to war and came back, and he really suffered with shell shock. And when we were kids, it's funny, right? Because we don't know why he's jumping at every little sound. So we make those sounds to make him jump. Meanwhile, as we came to realize that because of everything that he experienced when he was in the war, then that's what he came home with. He was one of the uncles who would always, load up his vehicle and have all the kids with him. Because that was one thing he said, that he didn't talk about the war very much. But when he did, he said the one thing that that stuck with him is how the kids suffered over there, and how he couldn't help them or make it better for them. But so he just loved to see the kids all happy, and yeah, we got away with a lot of stuff with him because he was a lot of fun. He is my grandpa's brother, yeah, and he's just like another grandpa, right? Because my grandpa died when we were young, like very young, so he just kind of stepped in. And see, he didn't, when he came back, like I said, he didn't have any compensation or anything from being in the army, but so he lived in a camper, like summer, winter, he was at the edge of the lake living in a camper, and that's where we would be all the time. And he'd load us up, and he had his cattle there, and he would load us all up there and have to go and chase his cattle. And this one time we were all in the back of his truck, and he took off, because if you weren't ready, that's your fault, you hang on. And one of the boys didn't get in fast enough, so he's running behind the truck, hanging onto the tailgate. We're yelling for him to stop. He won't stop. And then we were trying to pull this kid in, and yeah, it was funny. I think the memory that would stick out for me the most would be with my grandparents, for sure. Like everything that we did with my grandparents. They didn't have a lot of money, for sure. Like they were poor. They were fishermen and they were farmers, and that's it. I guess all the experiences we had, because like we had to look after the animals, we had to do the chores. It doesn't matter how old you were, you did your part on helping and working on everything. So we were expected to help with the chores inside the house and outside the house as well. We would be the ones who would be helping out in the barn and cleaning the barn or helping with the cows or milking cows. And chickens, worst job in the world. I'm terrified of birds. And I had to feed the chickens all the time. So when you're walking down with a pail of food, they all come towards you. So I'd drop that pail and I'd take off back to the house. Every day I'd get in trouble. Go feed the chickens. And it's like, nope. They'll get the food out of the pail, but yeah. What else did we do with the grandparents? The haying, I guess, is a big thing. Like, yeah, they never used tractors for haying. They used horses. Yeah, so that's one of the memories for sure that will always, like when I talk about it to my kids and my grandkids, they're like, well, that's the olden days. I'm like, no, it's not, but it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my job when we were haying, they wouldn't do the bales, they would do the haystacks. Mm-hmm. So they had what they call a hoist. So when the hay is brought to the hoist with another team of horses, then my team of horses would be the ones that would be lifting the hoist and then flipping the hay on top. And then the kids up on top would be the ones spreading out the hay. I was so proud to have my own team of horses. I thought it was like the best thing in the world. But the horses do it all the time, so they know what to do even if no one's telling them what to do. But yeah, I loved it. And the other job I had for haying was on the sweep. So it's a team of horses, and I don't know who built it or who made them at that time. It was all poles, and the horses are on the edges, and there's a board on the back after the hay is raked up and the sweep comes along. Then I would sit on the back board to lift the hay up off the ground, like with all the poles, and then the horses would take that to the hoist, and then we'd flip it up. So yeah, it was fun. Well, lots of fun. The one thing that I guess I did more than the hunting was dog sledding. Late 90s, I guess it was. I was in Lynn Lake, and I fell in love with dog sledding. If you ever get a chance to go dog sledding, you need to go. So I raised my own dogs. So I had 26 dogs, and I raised from pups. I never bought dogs. I always raised my own. I had dogs for about 15 years till I left. I only have 2 now from the same line that I had when I started. But yeah, it's so much fun. We used to go, my kids and I had 5 kids at the time. Every day after school, we would be out at the dog pen, and every weekend we'd load up everything we needed to spend the day out there, winter, summer, all the time. We were out at the dog pen. Mm-hmm. My kids would be running their own teams, so it was fun. Okay, how do I feel about the word half-breed? I'm okay with it. I really am. A lot of people aren't, but I am okay with it, and I really believe that that's what we are. We're not French. So we're Scottish, and I don't find that it's insulting when someone says, "Oh, you're a half-breed," mm-hmm. But some people do, and they have a right to feel that way. Mm-hmm. Just like I have a right to feel that it's okay. I don't know if it's a word that we could start using more. I'd be fine with it, but the majority of people probably wouldn't be. They probably would feel that it is something that we should stay away from, or that it's insulting to people to be called a half-breed, but I don't find it that way. And a lot of people in my family, and it's a huge family, they're proud when they say I'm a half-breed. I feel proud to say I'm a half-breed, mm-hmm. But it's something that I've grown up with. Mm-hmm. So we were taught to be proud of who we are and for what we have, and it's passed down for, again, generations that we're half-breeds. What's different for the Métis Nation? I would say being able to be proud of who you are. No one ever told us that, all the history for the Métis people. I didn't learn about the history of the Métis people till I was an adult, on all the sad stories and the residential schools and all of that. And when you think back, it's wow, okay, so this was happening when I was doing whatever you were doing, right? In our normal everyday lives. But other people were experiencing all these hardships, and I think that's a difference, because it's there was no one fighting for the Métis people then, to make it okay to be who you are. The government that we have right now, they they're looking after the Métis people. They're doing so much for the Métis people. And you're proud to be part of it. You know, you're proud of them for all their hard work. You're proud of yourself for being part of it. You're proud of your relatives who passed on, you know, everything that they went through. And yeah, so like now, so many programs too, like to help. Like if my grandparents or my parents had the help of like glasses or being able to get their medication, like back then, it would have helped them so much. So there's that now where people don't have to worry about how they're going to get glasses, or they go without them because they can't afford them, or, you know, getting their medication that they can't afford. So the programs that they have now help them with that. The housing program they have now, it's great. Like for our community in Manitoba House, there's so many people who are benefiting from the housing, where they would never be able to do all the repairs and renovations that are happening now in their homes. So even that, to give them a safe place and a healthy place to live. And the education, you know, the kids who are able to go to university and college and to have an income while they're going to school. And, you know, some of them are working towards their dream of having a career that they want, that they love. And yeah, before that wasn't there. So I started university when I was 18. I started my teaching degree then, and I went for 2 years, and then I quit, and then I worked like in different jobs. Like I did lots of different jobs. I was a waitress, I was a cook, I was a dishwasher, I was a secretary. I worked for Manitoba Trappers Association. I worked for Lynn Lake Friendship Center for years. I was the executive director there. In that time I was working, I also completed my certificate in management for community economic and organization development, long title. And I did my business administration certificate, and I did my Bachelor of General Studies and my Bachelor of Education. When I went to do my Bachelor of Education, I was in the BUNTEP program, and MMF actually helped me, and it was just starting back then. That was a long time ago. Starting back then, like for supporting students. So without that support, and at that time I was on my own with my kids. My husband had been killed in a car accident. So without that support, you know, I probably wouldn't have been able to do my Bachelor of General Studies or my Bachelor of Education. So yeah, so now there's like so much more than there was back then. So yeah, I think that's one of the biggest ones. Well, between Sandy and I, we have 5 kids. The oldest one is Malcolm Campbell. He lives in Kennesota. He's married to Tanya, and they have 3 boys. He is a long-haul trucker, I think it is. Is that what you call it, long-haul trucker? He drives to Chicago and back a couple times a week, yeah. So his love, his first love, well, besides his wife, is playing music. He's got a CD out for Interstate Blues, I think it's called. Yeah, he plays all kinds of music, of course, with Sandy as his dad and the Campbell family. Every kind of music they can play, every instrument they can play. But his love is the blues music, yeah. So his 3 boys, they're grown, and they work on construction. So they're gone all summer on the highways working for construction. Tanya is the one who keeps us all on track and keeps us calm when we're not. So thank goodness for her. And the next one would be Jill Moore and Jeremy Moore. They live in Winnipeg. They just came back from living in BC for a couple years. So they have 3 kids as well. One's just finished, well, she was university, and the other 2 are still attending school, but they're all back in Winnipeg, so that's great. The next one would be Christopher Potts. So Christopher Potts and his wife, Marion, they just moved to Brandon. They left Lynn Lake. He's a supervisor for a construction company as well. They work up in Uranium City. He's worked all across Canada. wherever they need him to go to supervise the site, then that's where he goes. And they have 2 kids. Devin is 13, I think, and Ayla is 7. So they're in Brandon and going to school, and they're loving it there. So that's good. Julia, she is back in Brandon as well. She has 2 girls, Shannon and Naira. Shannon is 12 and Naira is 6. And Julia, she's completed her master's in Native Studies and her master's in Rural Development. So she was working in Ontario and Alberta for a while, and now she's back in Manitoba. And she's working for not the university, she was there, but now she's with the Friendship Center. And she's working with 60 Scoop. And she delivers a whole bunch of programs there for the Friendship Center. And the youngest one is Kirby Sinclair, and his girlfriend, Dory. They live in Gillam. Kirby's a millwright. He did his training through Manitoba Hydro, and then for the last 5 years, he's been traveling around all over the place, working in different companies, and wherever they place him, then that's where he'd work. He went down into the States for a while, and then he's back. He's back up in Gillam now with Hydro, so they're doing good. So all my kids are kind of all over the place, and they're doing great. They're very strong kids. And some we don't get to see very often, but it's how families are sometimes. But yeah, I'm very proud of all of them. For educating both Métis people, I think there's still work to do for sure. But I think it's improving. Like for our school in Alonza School is very interested in promoting the Métis culture and bringing it into the school. Like we have a festival in our community called the Muktakani, and we do different events. Like we have a hauling water contest, the log sawing contest, nail pounding, threading the needle, like different events like that. So we've taken that into the schools, and the kids love it. So we do that, and just to get some experience on what used to happen, right? What they would have been doing back then. The kids actually in the Alonza school, they're asking for Michif language to be in the school and taught in the school instead of the French. And that's coming from the students. That's not coming from the teachers or any of the adults. So I think that's a big thing. So we're working on that, and we work with Northwest Metis Council, where Gail Wellburn, I think her last name is, she comes in, or she could come in and do them. She's done a couple times, come in and done some Michif. But they want someone there teaching it like as they would the French course. This is coming from the teachers, where they're asking for more information so they can learn more about the Métis culture. So we contacted the Louis Riel Institute, and they brought someone out, and they did a whole day professional development on the Métis culture, the history of the Métis, and they were going to focus it on the Manitoba House Local, like not the local, but the Post. And then they also included the sash and the different colors and what it means. And unfortunately, I missed it. So yeah, it sounded very interesting. The teachers really appreciated it. Like they were very interested in it. Yeah. When I was talking to people about getting more of the Métis culture like involved in the schools or for the teachers, they told me that there is a Métis curriculum. There's a Métis curriculum that's already developed. They have no one qualified to teach it. So right now there's people in school, in university, and then once they've completed the program, they'll be qualified to teach this Métis curriculum. I would really like to see the Métis curriculum, to see what's all in there and to see what extra qualifications you need to teach it. I don't know if it's all like the cultural stuff you need to know, which would be a big part. So things are already in place, but we can't use it because people are not qualified yet to teach it. So I think once more people complete that, or more people know about that, then maybe they'll go in that direction, right? And then maybe that will speed it up. It was probably in the 90s, and when I was in Grand Rapids, Hubert Sinclair, which everyone knows Hubert Sinclair, He was my father-in-law at one time. So he asked me to get involved with the MMF local there in Grand Rapids, and I was a secretary. And then he also got me involved in teaching square dancing, if you can believe that. Yeah, I couldn't do it now, but but I did. We had a lot of youth that came, and we had dancing like twice a week. From there, when I moved from Grand Rapids to Lynn Lake, then I was involved with the local there. It was a very small local over there, and we just had fundraising and different things like that. The programs that are available now were not available then at all, so it was very quiet, nothing like it is now. I was in Lynn Lake for 20 years, yeah, and then from there I moved to Brandon, and I wasn't involved with anything there. But then Manitoba House, when I came back home, then that's when I got involved with them.
Where do you see the biggest opportunity for Red River Métis citizens today with the MMF?
I think education is one of them, for sure. Like, there's so much available for the youth or anybody to go back to school if they want. You know, there's so much support there now and opportunities for them to go and finish their programs that they want and carry on to whatever else they want to do in life, right? And another one would be employment. Within the Métis government, we're growing so fast. There's so many opportunities for jobs. There's so much there in every department that you can pick and choose what you want to apply for, you know, and the training that's available for those positions. That's one thing, to get the youth involved in even our local and everything else that MMF is doing. It's something that we've been talking about, like, how do we get them to come out and be part of everything? Like, the youth are there, and we don't find that they come out to our meetings. And we're trying to find a way to bring them to be involved. Like, I think it's so important for them to be involved with their local, you know, to especially in each community, for them to know their elders and to know what their life was, you know, what their passion was, what sport they liked, you know, things like that, everything about them. Because there's so much life experience that these elders have that the youth will never experience. But if they realize, or if they learn, oh, so this person was involved in this, oh, this person did that. Like, for myself, it was just recently that I learned that one of the elders in our community, he used to race long distance on snow machine, like 300 miles, right? Yeah. So, and just all the stories he has about that, and all the experiences of traveling all those miles, and at each stop, and all the people he was racing against, and just the story about that. He's also a pilot. He also owned his own logging company, like everything, like all his experiences. And I'm sure, like, for me to learn that about him, like, you just have a totally new respect for them, right? And everything that they've experienced in life. And I think it's important for our youth to also know their elders in their community, or the story, you know, their story. Yeah. But to get them involved in everything that's happening with the programs and what's available for the youth, I find that it seems like the people who can really benefit from it, or really need to be part of that, they're having a hard time reaching out and getting it. But the ones who are like, well, they don't really want to do that, then, you know, it's there ready for them. So I think we have to figure out how to make it possible for the ones who are still struggling to be involved. And I don't know what the answer is for that. Words of wisdom for Métis youth, I think it would be to be involved, to become part, make sure you're part of your community. Like, if there's something happening, then attend it, you know, just be part of it, and be open-minded enough to listen to the elders, you know, to hear their story. And like you say, with things like this, like videos or whatever, they're listening to their stories, then they'll learn more about it and become more involved. Being involved, I think, is very important. And not just saying, yeah, I belong to Manitoba House Local, but actually belonging to Manitoba House Local and being part of it. Not working all the time by any means, but just enjoy being part of the local and your community. Because being part of a community and a sense of community and supporting each other, that's the most important thing, I think.